So this is like one of my favorite things. It's called my preservation of freedoms law. This is like my golden rule. Like, you know, Jesus had the golden rule: do unto others as you should have others do unto you. But what happens if you run into somebody that likes, you know, having his smelly feet rubbed in his face, and he rubs his smelly feet in your face all the time because he thinks you like it too. You know, so that was my initial problem that I came up with Jesus's golden rule. My golden rule sought to fix this in a way. And the one that I came up with is you're allowed to do whatever you like, whatever you wish to do. You're allowed to do as you wish, as long as it does not infringe on the freedoms of others. So you're not allowed to infringe on the freedoms of anyone else. You know, we're preserving everyone's freedoms here, and you're allowed to do whatever you want. It's essentially the law. So how does this work? Well, say you come into my house and I'm like, you know, kind of a prude and I don't like people swearing. You're not allowed to swear in my house, as per the law. If I come into your house and you like swearing, then I can't get mad at you for swearing. I don't know, because when you swear, you'd be infringing on my freedom to not be sworn at. When you swear at me, you're infringing on my freedom to not be sworn at in my house. When I go to your house, you're we're under, you know, a different. This is where it gets tricky, is when you go into people's houses and who owns like the lines that are drawn. When you go into somebody else's house, you're allowed to swear, and you know, if people are swearing, you can't raise an issue with it because you're infringing on their freedom to swear. In this case, you're infringing on their freedom to swear. They're not infringing on your freedom to not be sworn at. Someone steals from you, they're infringing on your freedom to not be stolen from. You know what I mean? If someone steals from you, if someone hurts you, they're infringing on your freedom to be not hurt or healthy. You know what I mean? So it's like, this is how you extrapolate all the content from this one little golden rule. You extrapolate all the laws. Applies to everything. Another thing that I did was the spirit of the law. So some people will break the law on purpose because they're willing to pay the consequences, like especially like corporations that are willing to pay a fine or something. This is where I invented, but you're actually breaking the spirit of the law. The spirit of the law is to not break the law intentionally whatsoever, that we have it in place so we do each other fair and we do right by each other, right? So it's spirit of the law is basically you're breaking the spirit and the intentions that the laws were set in forth to do, or even a specific law. The spirit of this law can have a definition to itself. And I do some stuff with laws that I have written down, and somebody might have hacked that already for you if you're on one of those clubs watching me. A visual conversation. So one of the things I do in my social network, where you have to pass a test to vote. That's the same with like our economy now. You have to pass a test to vote for politicians, and you're not allowed to support a party. You're allowed to support the political platform. So you support all parties or no parties. So you're supporting the political platform for them to run a campaign, and they get prioritization as per their, as per the polls, as per the polling numbers, they get prioritization. But it's equalized. It's also equalized. It's not always just prioritized. It's also equalized. So a visual conversation is where you take like a conversation, like a forum conversation where this person replies and that person replies. You try to organize it. So you take a topic, and then you have all these subtopics that people are talking about, and you organize all the subtopics. And say there's an intersection at a subtopic about two people thinking two different things. This group of people thought that thing, that people thought that thing. You create a tree. You create a conversational tree where you have the intersection. Here's the topics underneath this point of view. Here's the topics underneath the other point of view that they're arguing about. Here's a different argument that occurred over here, and you create this visual diagram for your conversation in order to get around your conversation a lot easier, so you don't have to go through numbered replies and stuff like that. Virtual CPU might help if you understand visual compression first. So visual compression is like, say I had this like hockey stat where I had a net, I had a picture of the ice rink, and the net's right here, and the circles are here, and this is where the blue line is, and this is where all the shots were taken from. But if I notice, if I colored this shot a different pixel, I could indicate that it was number 94 that shot it. And if I tinted it a certain way, I could indicate that it was a slap shot. And if I, did something else specifically to it, I might be able to indicate it that was 94 miles per hour. And then I could also indicate on which part of the net that it ended up resulting. Did it hit the top corner? Did it go into the middle? Did it miss wide? I can indicate possibly where it hit. And what I realized is from this picture where the goalie's here, I realized you could also figure out he's 15 degrees this way, 10 feet that way, 15 degrees this way. And you can figure all this stuff out from this one pixel. This one pixel gives you all this information about this whole series of events in this one picture, right? So the other thing is to look at is like each pixel can represent like a full word or a full sentence of commands. Like each pixel that you have, if you were to extrapolate these commands, extrapolate a legend of these commands, you could compress a whole bunch of data into a series of pixels, into a picture, and make like a 3D picture where you're taking this, where you're extrapolating all this data, you're extrapolating these mathematical angles and results and players and distances and times and all this stuff out of this one pixel. You know what I mean? You create a 3D picture where you're implying all these questions and you're answering all these questions. Just take like a 3D ball in space around an environment. There's a whole bunch of questions being answered right there that you could ask and that are being implied from that picture. The theory is that you intentionally try to create a picture with questions rather than answering that this ball is 20 feet from this thing or 30 feet from that thing, you're 6 degrees higher than it, and all these answers that you have in this picture. You have all these answers in this picture. You try to create a picture with better answers and better questions. And that with the legend of extrapolating letters, each letter can have a pixel, each word can have a pixel. Like there's millions of pixels, so each phrase can have a pixel, and then you just extrapolate the picture at the end and you uncover this whole program in this small visual pixel or visual picture compression. It's through this visual compression. So then the virtual CPU is same thing where CPU has two options. It's got 0 and 1. What I noticed with pixels is pixels have a location as well. They have a place, and they have a location. Just like there's 8 bits, each bit having a place, and there's 2 locations, 0 or 1, or whatever. Same with pixels. So each pixel can, rather than go 2 directions, a pixel can go millions of directions. You can calculate millions of things with a visual CPU. I'm just exaggerating the results. I guess if you were to look, if you drew a grid of like 16 green blocks, and then you +2, and you turn 2 of those blocks, or you -2 and you turn 2 of those blocks blue, and now you only had 14 green blocks. The logic that you could create from 0 to 1, where you only have 2 positions, is you had to create this like bean counter, phone operator architecture, right? Well, the logic that you could create with 0 to millions of results of the virtual CPU, where you have this many locations and you have this many results per location, you don't have to worry about this bean counter. You can literally do pixel 1, pixel plus, pixel 1 equals pixel 2. You know what I mean? And have the CPU work underneath the visual part. So you could build your logic off this rational math. Was the intention of the virtual CPU. So I have some other things. But the virtual CPU and I didn't do a good job at the virtual CPU, but the visual compression I did a good job at. The virtual CPU is interesting though. It's about infinite positions and infinite, or not infinite, but multi positions and multi results.